The music stopped for just a second, right after she laughed. "So what you do floral decor for ships?" she giggled, champagne in hand while everyone at my cousin's wedding turned to stare. My aunt grinned. My cousin sank lower in his chair. I stayed still, the smile on my lips calm, deliberate. Then I said, "No, I command them." Her laughter froze. Her father's fork stopped midair. I met his eyes and nodded once. Vice Admiral Carter. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was earned. But that wedding wasn't where the story began. 3 weeks earlier, someone made a call they shouldn't have. From the outside, my family looked picture perfect. Matching smiles, polished silverware, holiday cards, lined up like trophies. Inside, though, everything was about status. And in that game, I was never meant to win. Mark, my cousin, was the family's golden boy. Every promotion, every handshake, every half-decent accomplishment was treated like a royal coronation. Aunt Clara, the woman who ran our family like a PR firm, made sure of it. She believed in image above all else. Perception, not principle. And when it came to me, perception meant keep it quiet. I'd learned that lesson years ago. At Christmas, 2 years before the wedding, Mark unwrapped a Rolex. The whole room gasped. He raised his wrist and everyone applauded like he'd landed on the moon. My gift sat next to his small pink, wrapped in glitter paper. I opened it and pulled out a mug. White letters bubbled across it, "Girl Boss." Laughter erupted. "It's perfect for your little office job," someone said. I smiled, thanked them, and took a sip of the champagne that suddenly tasted flat. No one knew that just 48 hours earlier, I'd finished coordinating a carrier strike group exercise involving 6 nations. But that didn't fit their story of me. At Thanksgiving, it was the same. Mark held court about his stock portfolio while Aunt Clara beamed at him like a stage mom. I mentioned almost offhand that I was developing a new maritime strategy for the Indo-Pacific. Aunt Clara patted my hand. "That's nice, dear, like a travel agent for ships." The table burst into laughter. My cousin's girlfriend nearly spit out her wine. That was always my role. The quiet one, the tolerated one, the one who works with boats or something. They needed me small. Because small was safe. Small meant I wouldn't threaten the perfect image they built around Mark. But behind that image was a truth they didn't understand. When I stood in my office surrounded by real command screens, glowing reports, streaming in officers waiting for my order, there was no laughter. Just quiet, focused respect. I carried the weight of fleets, the responsibility of thousands of lives. And yet when I came home, I became Navy Lou, a family joke wrapped in polite smiles. Still, I stayed silent. For years, I believed silence was strength. Then came the wedding. And one phone call, just one, proved that silence wasn't strength anymore. It was permission. 3 weeks before the wedding, my phone buzzed late on a Wednesday night. Aunt Clara. Her voice was coated in syrup and panic. "Louisa, darling, I just wanted to talk about the wedding. I already knew where this was going." She rushed on words, tripping over themselves. "You know how important this event is for Mark. Mr. Jennings will be there, Chloe's father, a very influential man in defense. It's a huge opportunity for Mark's career." Then came the real request. "I was hoping you wouldn't wear your uniform. It's so commanding. Maybe something softer. Civilian. Oh, and please, maybe don't talk about your work. Just say you're in government logistics. We don't want things to feel intimidating." I stared at the wall, the phone hot in my hand. A vice admiral being told to tone it down to hide her service so her cousin could impress a contractor. She had no idea what she was asking. Not just to be quiet, but to lie. "Of course," I said evenly. "Wouldn't want to make things awkward." When I hung up, I didn't move for a long time. I just listened to the low hum of the bass outside my window, to the echo of my aunt's words looping in my head. Then my personal phone lit up. A text from Mark, "Hey Lou, Mom talked to you, right? Please don't make it weird. Chloe's dad is a big deal." I read it twice. Chloe's dad was a defense contractor. I was the client who signed his performance reports. That irony would have been funny if it hadn't been so insulting. I set my phone face down, opened my secure tablet, and stared at the classified briefing, waiting for my signature. Thousands of personnel movements, millions in assets, and my family still thought I arranged flower centerpieces for ships. That night, something in me shifted. The anger wasn't fiery anymore. It was cold, focused, surgical. For years, I'd tried to bridge two worlds, the one where I wore medals and the one where I was reduced to Navy Lou. But this time, they weren't just dismissing me. They were asking me to compromise a line they didn't even understand existed. So I decided something. If they only respected what they could see, money, titles, connections, then I would show them exactly what real power looked like. And their perfect wedding, that would be the stage. The next morning, I arrived at the base before sunrise. The corridors were quiet, the kind of silence that hums with purpose. I poured black coffee into a steel mug and opened the secure database. Jennings Aerospace. The name flashed on my screen. A list of active contracts, budgets, performance metrics, pending reviews. And there it was, Project Neptune. A multi-year logistics deal currently awaiting final evaluation. My evaluation. I leaned back, staring at the blue glow of classified data. Aunt Clara wanted me to lie for a contractor whose company reported directly to my office. They hadn't just crossed a line, they'd stepped into federal territory without even realizing it. I pressed the intercom. Evans. Within seconds, Lieutenant Commander Evans stepped in crisp alert. "Admiral, I'll be attending a private event this weekend," I said, eyes still on the screen. "Mr. Jennings of Jennings Aerospace will be present. I want a full brief on Neptune. All recent payments, deliveries, audits, everything." "Yes, ma'am," he replied, then paused, reading the tone in my voice. Full uniform, I looked up, met his gaze. "Not me, not yet. Civilian attire. Representational duty. But you full-service dress. Bring the files." Evans gave a faint, knowing smile. Understood. When he left, I closed the file and walked to the window. Outside, dawn stretched over the harbor. Rows of carriers glinted beneath a thin veil of fog, massive silhouettes that answered to my command. "They think I work with boats," I murmured. Maybe it's time they found out how many. That evening, Aunt Clara texted again, effusive, relieved. "So proud you're being cooperative, sweetheart. Mark will appreciate it." I typed a single word, acknowledged. Then I set my phone down, packed a simple navy blue dress, and added one more item to my bag, a small leather folder embossed with the Navy seal. The night before the wedding, I barely slept, not from nerves, but from clarity. For years, I'd tolerated their ignorance. Their laughter, their smug smiles, their insistence that I make myself smaller so they could feel bigger. But there's a kind of silence. The military teaches you. The kind that isn't surrender, it's strategy. By morning, my plan was complete. They'd asked me not to wear my uniform. Fine. I'd wear their comfort as camouflage. Because in my world, compliance isn't obedience. It's bait. The ballroom shimmered with gold light and laughter, the kind that only money can buy. Waiters glided between tables and a string quartet played something elegant and forgettable. I stood near the edge of the crowd, watching the people who thought this night was theirs. Aunt Clara spotted me first. Her expression softened with visible relief when she realized I wasn't in uniform. "You look perfect, dear," she said, pressing my hand as if I'd finally learned obedience. "So appropriate." I smiled politely. "Of course, Aunt Clara." Mark was already holding court at the head table, flashing his perfect smile, laughing too loudly. Chloe hovered beside him, glittering in sequins, her champagne glass a prop for her superiority. Her father, Mr. Jennings, sat across from them, his posture casual, confident, the kind of man who was used to being treated as the most important person in any room. No one noticed Evans yet. He stood near the back, quiet, in full dress uniform, a locked leather briefcase in hand. He didn't speak, didn't move. He was just waiting for the cue. Dinner began. Speeches followed. The room buzzed with wine and gossip, the kind of self-congratulation my family had perfected. When the music picked up again, Chloe turned to me, her tone honeyed and sharp. "So, Louisa," she said, swirling her glass, "Mark told me you work in naval design. That must be so creative." Aunt Clara gave a quick warning smile, the kind that begged me to play nice. Chloe tilted her head, all fake innocence. "So what you do floral decor for ships?" The table erupted in laughter. Mark looked down. My aunt smiled too tightly. Every eye turned to me, waiting for the joke to land, for me to laugh along, for the humiliation to stick. I didn't. I raised one eyebrow, my tone measured, soft, deliberate. "No," I said. "I command them." The laughter died on impact. Chloe blinked, confused. Her father's fork stopped midair, the silver trembling slightly above his plate. He turned toward me, voice low, cautious. "Command?" As in, I met his eyes and nodded once. "Vice Admiral Carter." The words cut through the noise like a detonator. The music seemed to collapse. Forks clinked. Chairs stilled. Mr. Jennings froze, face draining of color. He started to stand, almost instinctively snapping into posture the way men do when they suddenly remember rank. "Admiral Carter," he stammered. I didn't realize." "No need," I said evenly. "I was undercover. My family prefers it." Aunt Clara went pale. Mark whispered, "Louisa, what are you doing?" I turned to him. "Something you should have done years ago, telling the truth." And then, right on cue, Evan stepped forward. His white uniform caught the chandelier light as he crossed the floor. The crowd parted instinctively, drawn by the quiet authority of his stride. He stopped behind my chair, saluted, and said clearly, "Admiral, apologies for the interruption. You have a secure call with the Secretary's office regarding Project Neptune. I also have the preliminary performance review you requested." Every head turned. The name Project Neptune landed like thunder in Mr. Jennings's chest. He rose fully now, rigid, the sweat visible at his collar. Chloe whispered Dad Evans ignored her. His attention remained on me, professional, precise. I took a slow sip of water, then set the glass down. "Mr. Jennings," I said, "would you care to sit?" He hesitated, then obeyed. Around us, the guests exchanged nervous glances. Aunt Clara tried to force a smile, but her lipstick quivered. I opened the folder Evans handed me, clean sheets of data numbers and audit notes. I spoke quietly but firmly. "My office has concerns about your recent metrics. Payments, delivery delays, compliance issues. The performance trend is troubling." Jennings swallowed hard. We can fix that, Admiral. I assure you our team is already addressing every issue." "I'm sure you are," I said. "After all, the Navy depends on reliability, not charm." Chloe sat frozen, her earlier smirk gone. Mark's face was paper white. Aunt Clara clutched her napkin like a lifeline. Evans remained behind me, unreadable, standing at parade rest. Admiral Jennings said, voice strained, "I had no idea you'd be reviewing this project personally." "You didn't," I replied, "until now." The tension spread through the table like electricity. Every guest, every executive, every distant relative who had ever dismissed me was now forced to watch one undeniable truth. The woman they'd mocked commanded the very systems that controlled their world. I leaned in slightly. "We'll be in touch after this review. I expect transparency from here on out. Clear reports, accurate billing." "Understood." "Yes, Admiral," he said quickly. "Completely." I smiled faintly. "Good. Enjoy the reception." I closed the folder and handed it back to Evans. "You can brief the Secretary when we return." "Yes, ma'am." As Evans turned to leave, the entire table remained frozen. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioning and the string quartet struggling to restart. I stood. "Excuse me?" I said softly. "Duty calls." And with that, I walked away past the table that had mocked me, past the family that had shrunk me, past the people who finally saw me clearly. As I crossed the ballroom, I glanced back once. Aunt Clara's face had gone slack. Mark sat with his head in his hands. Chloe's eyes were fixed on her untouched glass. Mr. Jennings was speaking quietly to his assistant, pale and sweating. The laughter that once filled the room had evaporated, replaced by the quiet weight of realization. They had wanted me to be invisible. That night, I became unforgettable. 1 year later, the sky above Naval Base San Diego burned with late summer heat. Rows of sailors stood in formation, their uniforms white against the sun. I stood at the podium in full dress, the gold braid on my sleeve catching the light. Vice Admiral Louisa Carter. Assuming command, the announcer's voice carried across the parade ground. The applause that followed wasn't polite, it was earned. I looked out over the sea of faces, men and women who understood duty, respect, consequence. Not one of them shared my blood, but they were my family in every way that mattered. When the ceremony ended, my new aide approached holding an envelope. "This came through the diplomatic pouch, ma'am. Not official. I recognized the logo, Jennings Aerospace. Inside was a typed letter, gratitude, professionalism, a report that Project Neptune had exceeded all performance standards under new oversight." Beneath it, a smaller handwritten note. Chloe is no longer with Mark. She's interning at a nonprofit. She's learning a great deal. RJ. I smiled just slightly. I suppose we all did. That evening in my office overlooking the harbor, I watched the carriers move across the water, slow and deliberate. My phone buzzed Mark's name on the screen. Mom says we get it now. We're proud of you. I stared at the message for a long moment before pressing archive. The glow of the screen faded into the quiet hum of the room. I turned back to the window. The ships moved like steady constellations across the sea. They had once called me Navy Lou. Now they knew better. The harbor shimmered under the fading light, the water calm, unbothered, just like me. I watched the ships glide across the horizon, their motion steady, disciplined, certain. For years I'd been asked to shrink, to dim myself so others could shine. But power doesn't disappear when ignored, it waits. I'm no longer the quiet cousin with the boat hobby. I'm Vice Admiral Carter. And I don't apologize for taking up space anymore. If you've ever been told to make yourself smaller just to fit in, don't. Share your story below. In this community, we salute your rank.